When you stop chasing someone's potential and start valuing yourself, everything in your emotional world begins to shift, because for the first time, you stop negotiating with your own worth and you begin standing in it. You stop running after a version of him that exists only in your imagination, and instead, you turn inward and ask yourself why you believed you had to work so hard to be chosen. When you chase someone's potential, you fall in love with a future that hasn't happened, a future he hasn't earned, a future he may never grow into. And in doing that, you unintentionally abandon the present version of yourself that deserves to be loved right now, without delay, without conditions, without waiting for someone to become ready. You speak to the audience with the strength of someone who has lived through this, telling them that potential is a story you tell yourself to justify emotional crumbs. A story that keeps you hoping, adjusting, shrinking, and forgiving things you would never accept from someone who didn't already have your heart. When you stop chasing potential, you also stop making excuses for inconsistency. You stop rationalizing emotional distance. You stop lying to yourself about the difference between not ready and not willing. You begin to see his actions clearly, not filtered through your desire for what could be, but through the reality of what is. And when that clarity finally arrives, it is both painful and liberating. Painful because it forces you to admit how long you've held on to hope that wasn't matched by his effort. Liberating because it reminds you that you are not powerless, you are not stuck, and you are not obligated to wait for someone who cannot meet you where you stand. You speak to the audience and let them feel that shift inside you, that moment when you chose yourself not because he changed, but because you did. You start valuing yourself by remembering that love is not a reward for endurance. Love is not something you earn by proving your loyalty to someone who keeps you at arm's length. Love is an exchange of emotional effort, presence, intention, and consistency. When you value yourself, you hold space for a love that is mutual, mature, and secure. You don't beg for reassurance because you know you deserve clarity. You don't chase after someone who gives you half presents because you know you deserve someone who shows up fully. And you don't wait for him to see your value because you already see it yourself. Valuing yourself means recognizing the emotional labor you've been giving away for free. It means realizing how many times you soothed his fears while ignoring your own. How many times you prioritized his comfort while sacrificing your needs. How many times you held on because of a connection that wasn't being nurtured on both sides. When you speak to the audience, you remind them that emotional generosity is beautiful, but only when it is reciprocated. When it is one-sided, it becomes self-betrayal, and no relationship that requires you to betray yourself will ever bring you peace. As you step into your worth, your energy changes, your boundaries sharpen, and your voice becomes steadier. You no longer ask, "What else can I do to make him stay?" Instead, you ask, "Is this relationship honoring the love I give?" And when the answer is no, you stop trying to fix what you did not break. You stop trying to inspire effort in someone who is not choosing you. You stop tying your value to someone's struggle with readiness. And the moment you stop doing that, you reclaim a part of yourself you forgot you had, the part that knows you are not hard to love, not too much, not impossible, not unworthy. You are simply someone who loves deeply, and deep love deserves depth in return. You tell the audience that valuing yourself is not a performance of confidence, it is a practice. It is in the small decisions you make every day. The decision to walk away from mixed signals, the decision to stop accepting silent treatment as affection, the decision to refuse the role of emotional caretaker for someone who won't take responsibility for his own feelings. It is the decision to choose peace over chaos, self-respect over attachment, reality over fantasy. And it is the decision to believe in a love that doesn't require you to chase, earn, or beg for your place in someone's life. The moment you stop chasing potential, you start seeing patterns, you start recognizing red flags you once romanticized, and you start understanding that sometimes the greatest proof of self-love is distance. Distance from confusion, distance from inconsistency, distance from anyone who benefits from your lack of boundaries. And when you finally take that step back, you feel a freedom that is both terrifying and strengthening. It scares you because you are letting go of something you wanted so badly to work, but it strengthens you because for the first time, you are choosing yourself with intention, clarity, and courage. You speak to the audience as someone who has walked through heartbreak and grown stronger. You tell them that valuing yourself is not about being cold, distant, or unapproachable. It is about being aligned with the kind of love you want, the kind of love that requires two complete people, not one person giving endlessly while the other hesitates. And when you choose yourself, the universe responds. Your energy changes, your standards refine, and the people who cannot meet you fall away naturally. You no longer cling to them because self-worth has given you a new truth to live by. Real love does not come from chasing potential. Real love comes from recognizing your own. When you stop filling in the gaps for a man who is not ready and allow his effort to speak for itself, you finally give yourself the clarity you have been avoiding because for so long you have been trying to compensate for the space he refuses to step into. You have been carrying the emotional weight of two people, trying to keep the connection alive, trying to create progress where there is hesitation, trying to maintain closeness when he retreats, and trying to believe in a relationship that only moves forward when you push it. When you stop compensating, you see the truth of his readiness without distortion. You stop interpreting silence as stress, inconsistency as confusion, or emotional distance as fear of getting hurt. You begin to see his behavior for what it is, not for what you want it to be. And that awareness is the beginning of emotional freedom. When you speak to the audience, you help them understand that a man's effort is not found in his words, but in the consistency of his actions. If he is ready, you won't have to remind him to show up. You won't have to beg for clarity. You won't have to fight for attention. You won't be the only one who initiates conversations, plans time together, or tries to deepen the bond. A man who is emotionally ready leans in naturally, not because you pull him, but because he chooses to. And when you stop filling the silence with your effort, you see whether he fills it with his. You explain to them that this is not about playing games, withholding affection, or pretending you don't care. It is about stepping back enough to observe what he does when you are not doing everything for him. Far too often, women fall into the habit of over-functioning because they believe that if they don't hold everything together, everything will fall apart. But what they don't realize is that if a connection collapses simply because they stopped over giving, then it was never a real connection to begin with. A relationship should not survive only on one person's effort. A relationship that relies on one partner doing all the emotional work is already broken, just quietly. When you stop trying to inspire effort in him, you allow him to reveal who he is. If he steps in, if he begins to show consistency, if he starts communicating, if he begins contributing emotionally, then his readiness was always there, just buried under fear or hesitation. But if he backs away, if he becomes distant, if he stops trying altogether, then his readiness was never there, and your effort was masking that truth. You tell the audience that stepping back is not abandonment, it is alignment. It is aligning your energy with the level of effort you receive. It is matching his pace instead of forcing your own. It is honoring your heart instead of drowning in emotional labor. You remind them that they deserve to be met, not chased. They deserve to feel chosen, not tolerated. They deserve depth, not shallow affection that appears only when it is convenient for him. When they stop compensating, they finally create room for that kind of love. And yes, this shift can feel terrifying. It can feel like risking everything, like letting go of the only connection you wanted to work. But it is also the moment where self-worth grows roots. Because self-worth is not proven in how much you give, it is proven in how much you refuse to give when it is not returned. You tell them that sometimes the reason a man never steps up is because he never had to. You are doing the calling, the apologizing, the fixing, the soothing, the planning, the understanding, and the forgiving. You were making it easy for him to stay unready because your readiness was doing the work for both of you. But when you stop doing that, you give him a choice, not a comfortable one, not a passive one, but a clear one. Step forward or step out, choose you or release you, meet you or lose you. And no matter what he chooses, you win. If he steps forward, you gain a partner willing to grow. If he steps back, you gain your freedom from a connection that was never going to give you the love you deserved. You tell the audience that this clarity, though painful, is a gift. It stops you from investing your heart where it cannot bloom. It stops you from waiting for someone who is not willing to evolve. It stops you from watering a relationship that has no intention of growing. You speak to them with compassion, letting them know that stepping back is not coldness, it is acceptance. It is accepting that you cannot build a relationship alone. It is understanding that love is not proven through sacrifice, but through reciprocity. It is recognizing that your worth is not tied to how much you can give, but to how deeply you honor yourself. And when you finally stop filling the emotional gaps, the right man, the ready man, will not allow distance to settle. He will not let silence replace communication. He will not be comfortable with losing you. He will step in, because a man who is truly ready to love does not hesitate when he feels the absence of a woman who brought light into his life. But the ones who are not ready will drift away, and their absence will make room for someone who is. When you stop trying to convince someone of your worth and instead begin embodying it, something profound shifts inside you, because for the first time in a long time, you no longer look outward for validation that was always meant to come from within. You speak to the audience from that truth, helping them understand that the moment they stop trying to prove themselves to a man who is unsure, inconsistent, or unready, they reclaim a kind of power that no one can take away. And this power is not loud. It is not aggressive. It does not need to argue, justify, or persuade. It is quiet confidence. It is calm certainty. It is the steady knowing that your value is not determined by whether someone recognizes it, but by the fact that it exists with or without their acknowledgement. You explain that many women fall into the exhausting cycle of proving their worth because they hope that if they give more, show more, or sacrifice more, a man will finally wake up and realize how lucky he is. But the truth is, the more you chase validation, the more you teach him that your worth is something he gets to decide. You teach him that your value is negotiable. You teach him that you will stay as long as you keep trying to earn a place in his life. And in doing so, you slowly erode your own self-respect, because trying to convince someone of your worth is the fastest way to forget it. As you address the audience, you tell them that worth is not a performance. It is not proven through perfect behavior, relentless effort, or endless emotional giving. Worth is inherent. Worth is quiet. Worth is the way you treat yourself, even when someone else treats you casually. It is the way you choose yourself, even when someone else refuses to choose you. It is the way you walk away from inconsistency, not because you do not care, but because you care too much about your own peace to stay where love is uncertain. You help them recognize how much emotional labor they invest into proving themselves and how draining that is. They explain themselves repeatedly. They justify their boundaries. They over-explain their feelings. They try to be the easy woman, the cool woman, the patient woman, believing that being less of a burden will make them more lovable. But real love does not require self-erasure. A man who is ready for you will not need you to shrink so that he can feel comfortable. He will not need you to prove that you deserve loyalty. He will not need to be convinced to treat you with effort. A man who sees your worth sees it long before you try to show it. You remind them that stopping the habit of proving themselves doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming aligned with your own truth. It means acting from a place of self-awareness where you no longer tolerate crumbs in the hope that they will turn into a feast. It means understanding that your heart is not a project for someone to evaluate. It is a gift that the right man will treasure without needing persuasion. You explain to them that when they stop trying to convince someone of their worth, they stop chasing potential and start evaluating reality. They stop saying, "He could be great if he just tried," and start saying, "He is not trying and that is the truth." They stop hoping for change and start recognizing patterns. They stop glorifying his excuses and start paying attention to his actions. And this shift is not bitterness. It is maturity. It is emotional grounding. It is the moment you begin prioritizing your future over your fantasies. You remind the audience that love is not something you earn by being good enough. Love is something that is given freely by someone who recognizes your value without needing to be educated about it. And when someone is truly right for you, they do not need a presentation, a list of your qualities, or endless demonstrations of loyalty. They feel your worth because you feel it first. You help them understand that when they stop convincing, they start attracting. When they stop over giving, they start receiving. When they stop chasing, they begin aligning with partners who are emotionally ready, present, and intentional. Because your energy no longer gravitates toward men who need persuasion. Instead, it gravitates toward men who are capable of reciprocation. You speak to the audience with compassion, acknowledging that this shift is painful. Letting go of the need to prove yourself means facing the fear that someone might leave when you stop trying so hard. And yes, some will leave. The ones who never valued you. The ones who needed you to work for their attention. The ones who benefited from your self-doubt. But the ones who stay, the ones who step forward, are the ones who truly see you. You remind them that leaving behind the habit of proving your worth is not just about relationships. It is about rewriting your relationship with yourself. It is about honoring the parts of you that once felt invisible. It is about embracing the truth that you were always enough, and the right person will recognize that without hesitation. And when you teach the audience this, you are not giving them permission to give up. You are giving them permission to rise. You are giving them permission to stop begging for love and start walking toward the kind of love that does not need convincing. You are teaching them to step into a world where their worth is not a debate, but a certainty, where their value is not a question, but a statement, where their heart is not something to fight for, but something to choose with clarity, confidence, and self-respect. When you finally stop trying to rescue someone who does not want to be saved, something inside you shifts in a way that feels both terrifying and liberating, because for the first time you are no longer operating from the fantasy of who someone could become, but from the reality of who they are choosing to be right now. And as you look out at the audience, you help them understand that this shift is not about giving up on love. It is about giving up on illusions. It is about releasing the exhausting emotional labor of investing in someone who shows you with their actions, their silence, and their inconsistency that they are not ready to meet you at the level you deserve. You tell them that many women fall into the trap of thinking they can pull a man into readiness through their patience, kindness, forgiveness, and emotional effort. They believe if they love him enough, wait long enough, support him enough, or tolerate enough, he will eventually rise to the version of himself they imagine. But rescuing a man from his own unpreparedness is a burden no one can carry, because someone who is not ready emotionally cannot be made ready by your love. Readiness is a choice, not a result of your effort. And every moment spent trying to save someone who is not trying to save himself drains your energy, steals your peace, and slowly breaks the relationship you have with yourself. You explain that rescuing comes from a place of hope, but also from a place of fear of loneliness, fear of starting over, fear of failure, fear of thinking that if this relationship doesn't work, maybe nothing will. And that fear convinces women to stay longer than they should, tolerate more than they deserve, and work harder than is healthy. But you look them in the eyes and tell them that loving someone should not feel like dragging them uphill emotionally while they remain unmoved. Love should not feel like begging someone to step into the bare minimum. Love should not feel like a constant effort to create enthusiasm in someone who only offers indifference. You remind them that rescuing a man often feels noble because they see his potential. They see glimpses of who he could be on his best days. They see flashes of effort that come and go. They see his wounds, his history, his struggles, and they want to be the one who helps him heal. But a man's healing cannot be your responsibility, because healing requires his willingness to show up for himself. And if he does not choose that, you cannot choose it for him. You cannot grow for him. You cannot fight his emotional battles for him. You cannot give him a readiness he refuses to cultivate. You speak to them about the cost of rescuing a man. The cost is often your own self-worth. You slowly begin to internalize his lack of effort as your lack of value. You start to wonder if you are not lovable enough, patient enough, attractive enough, understanding enough, or worthy enough. But the truth is, his unreadiness has nothing to do with your worth. His inability to love you fully does not reflect your capacity to be loved. His inconsistency is not a mirror of your inadequacy. It is simply a reflection of where he is on his own emotional journey, and no amount of rescuing can move him forward if he is not choosing to step forward himself. You tell the audience that stepping back from rescuing someone is not a sign of coldness. It is a sign of deep self-respect. It is recognizing that real love does not require you to sacrifice your own emotional well-being. It is understanding that you deserve a relationship where effort is mutual, healing is shared, growth is intentional, and readiness is equal. It is choosing to stop pouring into someone who treats your love like an optional convenience rather than a precious gift. You remind them that when you stop rescuing someone, you are not abandoning them. You are simply allowing them to face the consequences of their own choices. You are letting them meet themselves honestly, without your emotional cushion protecting them from reality. You are giving them the opportunity to grow, because true growth only happens when someone is confronted with discomfort, responsibility, and accountability. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop trying to save someone who does not want to save himself. You tell them that letting go of the urge to rescue creates space. Space for clarity, space for emotional healing, space for a partner who is genuinely ready, space for love that does not require suffering, space for relationships built on mutual commitment rather than one-sided effort. And the moment you create that space, you begin to breathe again. You begin to feel again. You begin to remember who you are without the weight of someone else's emotional unpreparedness on your shoulders. You speak softly but firmly, reminding them that a relationship should be a partnership, not a rescue mission. You tell them that a man who is truly right for them will not need to be saved from himself. He will rise on his own. He will meet you with intention. He will show up with consistency. He will offer emotional presence without needing to be dragged. He will work on himself not because you beg him, but because he chooses to. And as you finish, you let them feel the truth in their hearts. That stepping back from rescuing someone is not losing love. It is finding yourself. It is reclaiming your power. It is protecting your spirit. And it is opening the door to a love that does not drain you, but fills you with peace, safety, and reciprocity. When you begin to understand the fifth keynote, something inside you shifts, because you start to see that choosing yourself over someone's inconsistency is not selfish, it is survival, and not the kind of survival that makes you hard or distant, but the kind that brings you back to your own heartbeat. You may not realize how often you have placed yourself second, how many times you have made someone else's confusion your responsibility, and how deeply you have internalized the idea that if you just try a little harder, love a little louder, or give a little more, the person who is not ready for you will suddenly become ready. But it does not work like that. You cannot heal someone's uncertainty by shrinking yourself. You cannot calm someone's fears by abandoning your own needs. When a man is not ready, you chasing him only teaches him that your heart will still be there even when he gives nothing back. And that lesson is the most dangerous one you can allow someone to learn about you. Every time you stay available to someone who is unavailable to you, you quietly tell yourself that your desires are negotiable, your worth is flexible, and your heart should settle for whatever it is handed, even if it is half attention and mixed signals. And I want you to hear this without brushing it off, without telling yourself that you are different, without assuming that your situation is the exception, because this part matters. When someone is not investing in you, when someone is not showing up in a consistent, intentional, emotionally present way, it does not matter how deeply you feel or how much potential you see. Potential does not build a relationship. Effort does. Choice does. Alignment does. And when you stop chasing someone who won't choose you, you finally stop running from the truth that you deserve someone who will. Choosing yourself is not about walking away in anger, nor is it about punishing them for what they cannot give. It is about reclaiming your emotional space. It is about recognizing that your value does not decrease just because someone else cannot recognize it right now. It is about finally accepting that you cannot lose someone who was unwilling to stay, and you cannot keep someone who was never holding you in the first place. When you shift your focus from winning their love to honoring your own needs, everything changes. You start to breathe again. You start to see clearly again. You reconnect with your standards, your confidence, your sense of peace. And that peace is priceless. But let me talk to the part of you that finds this terrifying, the part of you that fears losing them if you stop trying. That fear is real, but it comes from a place inside you that has been taught to believe that love must be earned through effort, sacrifice, or perfection. It comes from experiences that made you feel like being chosen is something you have to fight for. Yet here is the truth that fear tries to hide from you. The right person does not need to be chased. A man who is emotionally ready, stable, and genuinely interested moves toward you, not away from you. He meets your energy. He honors your time. He respects your boundaries. He wants clarity, not chaos. And the moment you choose yourself, you create the space for that kind of person to enter your life. When you honor your worth, you break your addiction to mixed signals. When you choose yourself, you stop negotiating with inconsistency. When you step back, the wrong man fades and the right man steps forward. But more importantly, you step forward. You step into the version of yourself that knows what she wants, what she deserves, and what she will no longer tolerate. You become a woman whose love is no longer given to people who are undecided about her. You become a woman who no longer waits for someone to be ready while putting her life on pause. You become a woman who understands that love should not feel like chasing something that is always running from you. And when that happens, something beautiful occurs. The man who truly values you, whether it is the man in your life now or someone you have not yet met, will feel the difference. He will feel the strength in your boundaries. He will feel the clarity in your energy. He will feel the unwavering truth that you will no longer settle for half love, half effort, or half presence. And that truth alone will attract someone who is ready, someone who is present, someone who will not hesitate when it comes to you. So choosing yourself is not the end of love. It is the beginning of the right kind of love. It is not walking away from connection. It is walking toward a connection that honors you. And it is not losing someone else. It is finally finding yourself again. The you who knows she is worthy not because someone chooses her, but because she chooses herself first. When you finally embrace the sixth keynote, you begin to understand that the strongest thing you can ever do in love is let go of what keeps you small. And I want you to feel the weight of that, because letting go is not weakness. It is not giving up. It is not admitting defeat. It is an act of profound courage, because it means you are choosing truth over fantasy, reality over potential, and your own peace over someone else's hesitation. You may not realize how long you have been holding on to someone's. Maybe how many nights you have spent replaying mixed signals, rereading conversations, decoding silences, and convincing yourself that if you are patient enough, loyal enough, or understanding enough, something will finally shift. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop waiting for someone who is not choosing you and let go of the story that was never actually happening in the way you hoped. Letting go does not mean you did not care. It does not mean the connection was not real. It simply means you have decided to stop sacrificing your heart for someone who isn't ready to protect it. You deserve a love that holds you, not a love that keeps you on standby. You deserve a love that moves toward you, not one that stays safely on the edge, afraid to commit. And when you let go, you stop abandoning yourself for the sake of holding on to someone who cannot meet you where you are. You stop living in emotional limbo. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop shrinking your voice just to keep a place in someone's life who doesn't offer you a secure one. I want you to imagine for a moment how heavy it has been to carry someone who won't carry anything back. The emotional weight of waiting, the constant uncertainty, the hope mixed with disappointment, the longing tangled with confusion. You have been lifting all of it alone, and you call it love, but love is supposed to lift you too. When you let go, you finally put that weight down. You give your heart the space to breathe again. You give your mind clarity. You give your energy direction. And most importantly, you give yourself a chance to receive something better than whatever crumbs you have been accepting. Letting go is not just an action, it is a declaration. It is you saying, I am no longer afraid to lose what is not meant for me, because I am done losing myself in the process of holding on. It is you reclaiming your power, your standards, your emotional boundaries. It is you refusing to be someone's temporary comfort while longing for permanent commitment. It is you realizing that sometimes the person you want the most is the person you must release so you can realign with who you are meant to become. And yes, it will hurt. It will feel like ripping out a piece of your own heart. You will question yourself. You will miss the good moments. You will replay the potential. You will wonder if you are walking away too soon. But in that pain, you will also uncover something else, something quiet but undeniable. You will discover relief. You will feel the release of no longer waiting for the bare minimum. You will feel the strength of choosing clarity over confusion. You will feel the peace of no longer trying to prove your worth to someone who should have seen it without persuasion. When you let go, you create space, and space is powerful. Space invites healing. Space invites self-respect. Space invites new possibilities. And eventually, that space invites someone who is ready, someone who is willing, someone who shows up not because you chase them or wait for them, but because they recognize